We're gonna get started. I know last week we had a guest in the second half, and I know kind of each week's gonna be a little bit different based on schedules, honestly. So today we have two different people who are joining us. Both are with the Brooklyn 2K team, and I'll let them kind of introduce themselves. Honestly, Steez and I go back a little bit. So just some history. Steez was with 76ers GC and now with Brooklyn. So we worked together briefly when I was with the 76ers. Ivan, I haven't met till today, so I may have more questions that I don't have all the answers to in that direction. But Ivan, why don't you go first, just kind of who you are, what your role is. I do know because I've done my research, but just for everybody here.
Okay. My name's Ivan Curtis. I go by OG King CURT. In the 2K gaming space, I'm the general manager and head coach for Brooklyn Nets gaming crew at the NBA 2K League.
Awesome. Steez, I'm going to call you Steez the whole day. So if you really want me to, okay, good. I figured that was what you were comfortable with, but like, if you want me to call you anything else, just let me know. But just, who you are and what your background is.
Quick rundown. Name's Alex Bernstein. I go by Steez. That's my gamer tag. You kind of, when you get into the scene in the community, you don't want to use your government name too much. So you kind of pick a gamer tag and you kind of roll with it. Some people are in the 2K league and, they have that gamer tag that they've had since they're 13, but, I decided to change mine up a little bit. But yeah, from Orange County, California. Been in the league for going to be going on my 6th year now. And I started off with the Philadelphia 76ers GC. Like Aaron said before, that's where him and I kind of met. And I played there for the first 4 seasons and eventually decided I was going to part ways with them. And I just so happened that OG King CURT, he decided to take a chance on me and ended up drafting me back in the draft to NetsGC. And that's kind of where I spent my last season. And now, we're here today with you guys.
Ivan, how did you end up where you are? How did you end up as a coach in this league? What's your background? Did you play basketball growing up? Kind of take me through that arc.
Got you. I'm gonna shrink this as much as I can. Of course, started playing sports back in the day. Was an avid video gamer. Played high school basketball. Went on. I thought I was going to play JUCO. But I ended up opting and going to the United States Navy. And there I pretty much found my true passion of playing video games when I wasn't, working or doing anything like that. Well, I had a honorable discharge back in 2001. Obviously, back around that time, 2K had just launched in 1999. And I played on Dreamcast, played on Xbox 360, but it wasn't until 2K11 where they put in the 5v5 mode. And unfortunately, after 2K11, they took out the 5v5 mode as far as using your My Player, your own avatar. It didn't come back in until 2K15. At that point, a lot of people I was hearing about leagues, like people were forming their own leagues and tournaments. And so I got into that scene, which was it was kind of like an underground scene. If you knew, you knew, but if you didn't know, you didn't know. So I got into that scene, started playing as a player. But after a while, I figured I wanted to be on the more administrative side of things. So I started assisting in the league. And then it wasn't until I started playing in another league that I met a best friend of mine to date. We came together and we formed our own league. And it's called the MPBA. By 2016, we were arguably probably the #1 pro-am league and tournament circuit to play on if you play that mode. And that same year, the NBA 2K League and Take-Two Interactive announced that they were going to have an NBA 2K Pro League. Didn't really know how I was going to be involved. My best friend, he didn't. We really didn't know how we were going to be integrated in the league or not, but we just kept running our league. 2018, we get an opportunity to work with Bucks GG as we came on as basically advisors and helped them build out their team in the first season. And then in 2019, I had an opportunity to become the general manager and head coach for Brooklyn Nets Gaming Crew. He had the opportunity to become the general manager and head coach for Mavs GG, which is the Dallas Mavericks affiliate team. And that's pretty much how I got to where I was. I mean, I kind of left out some things here and there, but after my playing career, I've been a basketball coach for over 20 years at multiple levels, girls, boys, high school, middle school, AAU. So I had a ton of basketball knowledge, you know, on the real life side of things, but put that together with my gaming, and, you know, here I am right now, you know, leading Brooklyn Nets Gaming Crew.
Awesome. Steez, I know you have a little bit different path to getting to the league. So, you know, can you kind of walk us through your kind of path to get here?
Yeah, I played football my whole life. I've actually never touched a basketball. And I ended up getting a scholarship to go play at a school called Northern State University in South Dakota. So if you guys don't know where that is, you know, it's those little spots on the map where you wonder if people actually live there. And that's kind of where I went to school, and ended up playing football there for a couple of years, got my degree in sociology. And I remember I was driving back and I was like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Because, you know, once you get out of college, it's okay if you guys don't have it figured out. I kind of learned that. And once I got back home, my dad had passed away a few years prior to college. And the reason why we were so like set up financially after that was because of my financial advisor, or my family's at least. And so once I got back from college, he wanted to meet up with me. I met up with him, and he kind of said like, hey, you want to help out people in their lives? Like, why don't I kind of take you under my wing and you become a financial advisor just like me? So being over here in Orange County, I ended up working in Beverly Hills for about a year and a half, 2 years. And in that time, it was always a hobby of mine after work. You know, once I'd leave the office, I was 22 years old and I'd start playing 2K. And I ended up playing 2K since 2K17. And, you know, I just got pretty good at it fairly quickly and played with some of my friends. Eventually, they kind of wanted to move on to a different video game, but I just had a lot of fun playing 2K. And like I said, it was just a hobby. And I'd still go to work at, you know, 6, 7 a.m. and get off work at 3 or 4 in the afternoon and come home and just play nonstop 2K. And then kind of like what Kurt mentioned, eventually Take-Two Interactive announced that they're going to make the NBA 2K League. And I remember I was 22 years old working for this Beverly Hills firm as a financial advisor. And I told my family, hey guys, I think I'm going to try and go for this. And they were pretty stunned because they were like, hey, listen, Alex, like this is a great opportunity you have right here being a financial advisor. Why would you want to give this up? And I was like, listen, I got the rest of my life to, you know, handle people's finances if I really need to. But I decided this is something that not a lot of people get to say that they've done for a career or even get their foot in the door. And so they decided, you know, okay, we're just going to support Alex. You know, it's a long shot, but good luck. And then there was a combine, which is an open tryout. Any of you guys could have tried out if this was 5 or 6 years ago. Now it's a little different, but back then pretty much anybody could have tried out. So I was going out there thinking I'm a pretty good, you know, 2K league player, and 2K player. And I was going out there with some, you know, regular degulars that, you know, don't know a thing about 2K. And it was kind of tough because your future, you had to like play with these guys. Like you had to like form like a bond really quick within 30 minutes and play good 2K basketball. And eventually out of 77,000 people that tried out, only 102 people in the whole world made it. I was one of those 102. And there's a few of us still in the league today because, you know, there's been 5 or 6 years now since. So slowly and surely people either retire or they don't get picked back up by a team. And that's kind of that chance that I took earlier that I mentioned to you guys, where I told the 76ers that I wasn't going to be coming back. And, you know, you kind of take that chance that another team's going to want you or see what you still have to offer. And that's kind of what OG did when he brought me over to Brooklyn. So yeah, I ended up making the league my first, you know, the first season of the NBA 2K League. Had a tremendous 4 years with the 76ers GC, brought them a lot of money and championships, and did very well for ourselves. And then, like I said, this is now my first year with the Brooklyn NetsGC, and I'm a big like defensive guy. I play power forward for you guys, and if you guys don't know who that is, think someone like Draymond Green for the Golden State Warriors. You know, he does a lot of the gritty work on the defensive end, and that's kind of what I do for our team. And yeah, we had, you know, a top 5 defense this year. And so now we're on the upward trend, and I'm excited to get back into the next season.
Ivan, you had more of a traditional kind of basketball background. So I'm going to get to you. I'm going to go back to Steez and come back to you. But Steez, you played football.
Yep. And
then all of a sudden you start playing 2K. Like, why did you end up playing 2K versus Madden, for example?
Yeah. I think it was just to get. I played Madden a lot at the time, but some of my buddies asked me like, "Hey, do you want to come play 2K?" And I didn't really. I mean, I knew it was a basketball game, but they're like, "Yeah, you could make your own player. We could play 3v3 in the park, you know, which is kind of like a very arcadey mode." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I really had fun with it. But like I said, I was picking up the game really quickly. The crazier thing was obviously the transition from being a financial advisor to playing video games. But like once you start seeing it, like back when this was a thing for me back out of high school or college, like esports wasn't really a thing. Yeah, there was like the very underground scenes of like Call of Duty and Gears of War and things like that, but I knew that there was like a vision there for esports. I knew this was going to eventually blow up because streams were starting to become a thing, Twitch was starting to become a thing, and I knew at some point this was going to take over the world. And so I kind of took my own chance on myself, thinking that like I said, not everybody's gonna be able to play video games or say that at least that they were in the community. And now I get to do that. But yeah, I mean, I was always a football guy, and I don't know, I just gravitated. Maybe it was just because like I was learning something new. And when you're learning something new, it's really fun to me. Whereas like there's some people who have been in the 2K league since, or they've been playing 2K since like 2K5 or like 2K1 even, and they're kind of over it, you know, where I just had started playing a couple years ago. So I still have that same fire and that competitive edge that like I love playing. And that's the same thing I tell, you know, OG all the time, is that like, because they wonder how long I'm going to be able to do this for, but like I still wake up every day and I love to compete. And I think a lot of that has to do with I wasn't around basketball my whole life. So now that I'm around it a little bit, I'm still loving it every single day.
You've been around basketball your whole life, it sounds like.
Yeah.
do you ever get tired of it? The other part, I think, and a lot of people have a tough part understanding is like they get traditional sports, but like you went from traditional sports and in coaching basketball to coaching people that are playing a video game. So probably twofold. One, do you ever get tired of now being in this digital space around basketball? And two, like how did that transition work for you? Does it translate one-to-one about things you can teach, you know, people playing on a court versus people playing in a game?
Yeah, I mean, do I get tired of it? No, I think because the biggest thing I say about athletes, you know, transitioning to the video game is you still, even though physically you may not be able to perform the way you once did, you still have that competitive fire inside of you. And I think ultimately it shows a lot in video games. I mean, I know a lot of sometimes that gaming gets a bad rap, you know, for a lot of people that rage and different things like that play the game. But on my side of it, it's just more about just waking up every day being competitive. You know, I've always been like that my whole life since I was a kid. The one thing that helps revitalize me is that, you know, getting players like Steez who, you know, they wake up every day hungry, you know, ready to practice, ready to compete. You know, on game night, I never have to worry about if he's ready to go, and just you know, some natural born leaders and competitors. So they kind of give me some juice, you know, the players do, because they have a lot, you know, it's a lot of stress involved in this. I mean, and the players kind of help ease it for me, because if I know that they're ready, it makes me stress less. Far as taking the traditional basketball and implementing it into the virtual aspect, it's a lot different. It's a lot different, but I think I'm kind of learning to put more into it than I have in the past, because gaming is more mental than physical. Beyond, you know, making sure that you're getting your rest and eating properly and things like that, and not always being in front of the screen, so you know, you don't have to deal with a bunch of eye fatigue and different things like that. But I always, you know, in real life basketball, when I coach, I was an in your face type of coach. And gaming, it's a lot different. That, you know, that doesn't always you know, get your point across, I think. And just to give you guys an idea, something that we haven't talked about yet, but in the NBA 2K League, basically each and every year they have competitions that amateur players compete in, and they're competing in these competitions with the opportunity to join a draft pool. And within that draft pool, those players are picked by the league to determine if they're draft eligible. And once they become draft eligible, players like people like myself, we draft these players. And like Steez is from Orange County, California. He has to literally move to Brooklyn, New York for 6 months. And so 4 other players have to do the same thing if they're not from New York. And when you start adding in all the little elements like that, and you have to learn these players in a short amount of time, you can't really just, you have to pick your spots when you decide to, to motivate players in different ways and things like that, because I have to take my time to get to know all 5 players in such a short window with a lot of money on the line. So I try to implement as much real life basketball as I can, but as far as from a motivational standpoint, once I get to know the player, then I know how I can channel our relationship into helping them become better on a virtual court.
You're going to set up right for my next question, so that's good. Steez, you're from California. You get drafted. You now have to move to, at first, you have to move to Philadelphia. You spend 5-6 years in Philadelphia, 5 years, I think it was, in Philadelphia. And then all of a sudden, you take the risk of like, hey, I'm going to go back into this draft. You could have ended up anywhere. Brooklyn's at least still close by on the East Coast, but, kind of what went through your head when you first got drafted to Philadelphia? Keep in mind that this is a class in Philadelphia. And second of all, like, what was that transition like having to go to Brooklyn, and how much did you know about Brooklyn before you went there?
Yeah. Okay, so hopefully I could still be a little bit of a Philly fan for you guys, and hopefully you guys don't grill me too hard. But I did bring more championships to Philly than Iverson ever did, so I think that's a good starting point. All right, hold on to that one. But yeah, I had a good time in Philly. It was tough though. Transitioning from California to the East Coast it's rough, man. I'm gonna be real. I don't know how you guys do it with the humidity. Your guys' food's great. I understand why everybody puts on some pounds when you get to the East Coast. But and my favorite Philly cheesesteak spot, I don't know. I think that Jim's place is pretty overhyped. And I don't know why, but I'm kind of an Ishkabibbles kind of guy on South Street. I've always been an Ishkabibbles guy. But hey, at least I'm not a Pat and Gino's guy, right? Like that's at least.
I might have kicked you out of class for the rest of the time. No. Pastor Gino's, so I'm glad you at least went there.
But no, it's a tough transition, especially because the other guys you live with on my team are from all over the place as well. So it's not like they're just from Philly and then like they're just taking me in. It's like we're all trying to adapt at the same time, and then also trying to figure out how we can be a successful team. And sometimes that gets tough because you're away from your family for 6 months, and sometimes I'm in my mid-20s and the guys that I'm playing with are 18 years old, and sometimes we don't have the same vision. These kids are straight out of high school. Some of them have never touched grass in their entire life. And, sometimes that's a little different for these kids. And it sucks because, I love my family. I love these guys here in Orange County. And so I don't leave these guys for nothing. So when I do show up to Philadelphia or Brooklyn, whatever team I play on, I mean business, because I know every single play I make or every single game we win, every shot we make, whatever it might be, that means money on my family's table. That means, buying Christmas presents during the holidays. That means putting food on the table, paying bills, whatever it might be. So some people look at what we do and they're like, oh, they're just playing video games. Like that's what it is. And it's like, no, like I've lost in the 2K League finals in a best of 5 series, game 5, the final game, $500,000 because whatever reason, I'm not going to get into it, but like things like that, you lose big moments. And so when you look at it like, oh, this isn't just a video game, like there's a lot of money on the line, like that happens. And yeah, to answer your question, it was cool being in Philly. It's cool to go and just see new places. And then now I've been in Brooklyn for a year, and that's even different than Philadelphia. Still East Coast, so I'm still, I still don't like the humidity, but I deal with it. And also, in New York we have bodegas and corner stores, so I like that a little bit more than probably anything that we had in Philly. So, but no, still definitely trying to address every single day because I'm a Cali kid at heart. I'm always going to be. I like going to the beach and I like hanging out by the pool and having some pina coladas and stuff like that. So always going to be a West Coast kid, but definitely fun to venture off to the East Coast.
Ivan, when you're looking at someone like Steez, who's going back into the draft pool, and he's clearly established himself as a player in the league, but he's been around for 5 years. Do you have concerns of picking somebody like that versus maybe somebody who's young and 18? You watched him. This is going to be his debut in the pro league. You don't know what he's going to be, but you see that potential there. And is it maybe just more of a balancing act on how you make those decisions?
One of the advantages I have is that, part two of why I named myself OG King CURT, because I was one of the older figures in the 2K Pro-Am community. So I kind of, if we go all the way back to 2014, 15, if you played that mobile and you were any good, I knew who you were. Even if I never talked to you, I still knew who you were, because 9 times out of 10, you played in our league or you played in other leagues that I was associated with. So you kind of get a grasp of how people are over the years, you know, just by talking to them in parties and watching them play. And then now we've gotten to the point where we have amateur events live. So you kind of get to know them a little bit better. But I think for me, I think you of course you have to have a balance, because of course a lot of the younger players, you know, they possess a large skill set and talent because you know, a lot of them are fresh and you know, still, you know, reaction times and everything like that. I mean, they're really good at the game, but the maturity level is a lot different. And for me, I have to be very cautious because I'm operating a franchise in Brooklyn, New York, and in New York City, period, where, you know, getting that 18, 19-year-old kid that may be from Oklahoma and then all of a sudden has to move to New York, that's a big culture shock. I mean, so I think what a player like Steez and a couple other players on my team provides for the younger players is just, you know, kind of a big brother, you know, a mentor, and how to navigate not only in the league, but just where we're at in New York. And it's worked out for me pretty well. I've never really drafted too young. Not that I'm biased against it, but I think you know, I just have to be smart in who I bring into New York and how they're going to fit in, because 6 months, you know, doesn't seem like a long time, but it's definitely a longer time for a kid who just now getting out on their own. It's kind of like their first initial step to moving in on campus somewhere, but it's only 6 months, and they're not only pitted with the pressures of performing well, but you know, how they go about their daily life. And I play a big part in that. I kind of become their parent away from their parents. So I'm definitely cautious about who I bring into NetsGC.
Steve, you mentioned this briefly, but I'm going to go a little bit more in depth. So you're drafted, or you know, you move to a new city and you're there for 6 months. And is every place the same? Like, is Brooklyn the same as Philadelphia, where it's all of you in one house or in one space? Or are you guys in different spaces and able to kind of just get a little bit of distance from each other, living wise?
Okay, so this is where you guys aren't going to like me as much. So it gets a little different organization by organization, and you know, the Sixer organization's great. They're trying to win a championship with the traditional NBA team. But there's some organizations that you could tell when you get into the 2K league that are all in on esports, and there's some that you could tell are a little hesitant, and they definitely have a stricter budget, little things like that. So for instance, with Philadelphia, I lived in a 7 or 8 man team house. And it was a good size house. I'm not going to act like it wasn't livable or anything like that, but I was sharing a bathroom with like 3 or 4 other dudes. So that was pretty tough. And, you know, things when you're living with 8 other dudes all the way from ages 18 to 25, 26, like things start happening, you know, arguments start breaking out, whatever it might be. People don't like to eat with each other anymore, whatever, you know, because winning cures all and losing really hurts everything. But yeah, so, and then you go to some organizations, like for instance, I'm with the Brooklyn Nets now with NetsGC, and they put us in like some amazing apartments from Brooklyn Suites. Get my own bathroom, which was like my selling point. I remember when OG kind of asked like, hey, is that a big deal? I said, that's a big deal for me, because I was in the league for 4 years and I always had to share a bathroom with somebody. But yeah, now this past season we were in apartments, and we had one of the roommates. So my roommate was my small forward. His name's Steez, and that really helped us a lot because it helped us gain a lot of chemistry. Like Kurt said, one of the biggest things that I could do is help mentor these cats, kind of like what you saw, Aaron, like back in Philly. I always had them under my wing and try to teach them the things about the 2K league and just how to be a better human being, basically. And that's kind of what I do with my roommate now. And my teammates, with NetsGC. But yeah, each situation is going to be different. Another thing that was very interesting this year with the 2K League was there was a central location. So since COVID and the pandemic is still going on a little bit, they decided to have a central market, and that was in Indianapolis. So if your team, and this is where you really honed in on the organizations that weren't as invested in esports, they had the opportunity to basically just send their team out to Indianapolis and say, here you go, live there for 6 months. And so, for instance, there are teams like the Boston Celtics, Celtics Crossover Gaming, they move their players to Indy. So imagine being drafted to a team like Boston. You think you're going to be living in Boston for 6 months, but they send you to the Midwest and you're just living in Indianapolis. Or let's say you play for the LA Lakers, and you're like, wow, I'm about to be in La La Land for 6 months. Nope, you're in the Midwest. So I was very fortunate enough to, yes, I was going from West Coast to East Coast, but at least I got to, be a part of New York City, and I'm in Brooklyn. And I think it is a little bit of a culture shock at first, but obviously it's way better than being in Indianapolis. So it all just kind of depends on what your organization brings to the table.
Go ahead, Alexander. So now your hands up.
Hey guys, I'm a follower of I think his name is Famous Enough on TikTok, like the Miami Heat like coach or GM. And
yeah, he's the worst. But go ahead.
I was about to ask, like, what do you guys think about people like him who are trying to grow, I guess, the public's perception of the 2K League through like social media platforms by showing us like what 99.99% of people would show us, like how you guys play like a different game and stuff of that nature, and like stuff that the average person doesn't really know.
That's your friend Kurt. You go ahead. You talk to him about that.
Yeah, that's one of my best friends. I love it. I mean, and I pretty much do the same thing. With my brand, my personal brand. But I mean, it's what we need. I mean, we need it from not only GMs and coaches, but players as well. When you have a league that's young as ours, you need to put it out there in as many outlets and many people as you can. I think, the one thing about it with me and him and a couple other GM and coaches that we all do different content, but it's still promoting the league. So I pretty much I like what Famous has been doing on TikTok, and definitely a lot of people have been chiming into it, and it's been very entertaining as well. But I encourage it from everybody.
Yeah, I'll second it. I mean, Famous does really well, and this is from a player standpoint, like how I see Famous. Famous and I go back because his team knocked us out season 1. So I remember him and I got into a little shouting match, but it's all like out of love for the game and love for the 2K League. And the content that he provides is sometimes definitely a little strange. Like as a player, it's not something that we look for, but I could see as like somebody who's just a fan of like 2K in general. I think he provides that kind of content that's really good for the casual player or someone who maybe isn't taking 2K as serious as like a professional matter, but they just love seeing like highlighted plays. Or I know sometimes Famous goes over like certain pro-am games and laughs about them or whatever, but like Kurt kind of said, all the content that we have in the 2K League or that you're trying to build around the 2K League is great content no matter what. Even if you don't think it's like the best thing in the world, at least like it's growing the brand as much as possible. So we know that if anybody else followed any sort of other esports, like Call of Duty, the Call of Duty League used to be nothing. They used to be showing up at apartments and warehouses on the weekends and like just playing little LAN tournaments there. And now if you look at, we went to a CDL event actually these past couple of months in Brooklyn, and it's one of the biggest events I've ever seen in my life. Everybody's going crazy for, Optic and FaZe and the subliners of New York. And that's where obviously we hope we're going to be one day, but it all starts somewhere. We're not going to we know we're not going to come out just popping off, just like how the traditional NBA is, where we have millions and millions and millions of people watching us, but it starts somewhere. And somebody like Famous and Kurt here, they're those stepping stones that help us get to there.
Thanks, guys. One more quick question. I think Famous also said that like 24 to 30 teams in the NBA have a 2K League team. Do you guys think that, and I think he said that the other 6 teams were like hesitant to, like, do you think the other 6 teams are going to be able to have a team soon? Like, is the league heading direction where it's going to be 30? Like how's like on that standpoint?
I'll start this one, Kurt. I think that kind of goes back to what I said before, where you're going to figure out what teams are very invested in esports. I think there are very young, talented teams. So like the Lakers, who are very like innovative. It's LA, they're trying to get into what's popping next. And so they got, they ended up getting into the 2K leagues. And then somewhere like Brooklyn, same thing, Philadelphia. But then you have some organizations, which I hope one day they are, but you have, let's just throw out like the Chicago Bulls, who are really trying to focus on getting back just their traditional NBA team, back to that caliber that they used to be. Obviously, there's no Michael Jordan anymore on the Bulls, but like they're trying to, like, I feel like really focus on that, and they don't see maybe the opportunity in esports just yet. Now, we keep doing what we're doing over here in the 2K League, and we keep growing that brand, then I see those type of teams, like you're wondering, start trickling even more. And I think that's why we also have two gaming organization teams in the league as well, which is Gen G and Duke's Gaming, based out of Mexico. But yeah, that's just kind of my take on it, Kurt. I don't know if you have anything else with that.
No, I think what, the whole origin of the 2K League was basically to engage with younger fans and use gaming to bring them into the NBA family. So I think it's going to be something that has to continue to grow. The other aspect of it is the business. How I think a lot of organizations haven't figured out how they want to sell it. Because everybody in here, sports and entertainment is all about the money at the end of the day. And I think some organizations just haven't been willing to step out there yet to see how, they can get a return on their investment. I think like Brooklyn, of course, I'll be a little biased because I'm engaged in both the business side and the gaming side, is that we put a lot of thought and effort into everything that we're putting out to, sponsors, potential sponsors, and, getting our brand out there and being able to get them the return that they're looking for. And in turn, we get, the money that we're looking for as well. So I think when organizations figure out how they want to sell it and how they want to use it to engage with their younger fan base, I think we will see more teams join. But also, I think what our league has done has been great in growing it on the global side of things. And there's going to be a new team to join this year, and I think it's going to be a couple new teams to join in the following year that more than likely will probably be overseas teams, and that's great for us as well. I mean, of course, it would be I think it would be great if we could get all of the NBA franchises to join the 2K League, but getting that global fan base and recognition is great as well.
Go ahead, Marshall.
Hey guys, thanks for speaking to us. So coming from a basketball perspective, at least, and I'm going to make a lot of assumptions. I haven't played 2K in a while, but do you ever feel like the confines of the game are too restrictive, in a sense that, in my opinion, I think 2K is very beginner friendly in a way that it's more of a kind of game to play as opposed to like a strict esport game. So do you ever feel like, that's an issue or in that regard?
So kind of like what I said at first when I started playing 2K, it was very 3v3 mode. That's one that everybody kind of starts out with. It's very like arcadey, and yeah, like you said, it's very helps out the casuals, the beginners, and that's fine. And yeah, it's tough because sometimes you see some wild things happen in 2K and you're thinking to yourself, like, this could never be an esport. And that's the fine line that we thread sometimes. So what we do is we come together as professionals and we get in contact with 2K, and we've had years where they fly us out to I think it's in LA area, like Santa Barbara. And that's where we end up testing with the devs, and we try to make our own league mode. So for instance, you guys can't see my other screen right now, but I have NBA 2K22 right now, which is the retail game that you guys could all play. And then I also have a season 5 league build, which is just our professional game mode, but it's also 2K. You guys have no access to that, but that's what you guys see on all of our 2K League streams. And that mode that we have is our best way of making, a $2.5 million prize pool actually be competitive. And we don't see anything crazy happen that's too arcadey, that shouldn't decide whether my family makes $250,000 or if I lose $250,000. So yeah, in a way, I get what you're saying. Trust me, being a professional, it's tough, especially when I play a lot of the regular retail game and I see just a lot of bad stuff happening that probably shouldn't happen, knowing that I got to go play that as a professional in a couple of months. But that's where you got to hope that with being the NBA 2K League, you got to hope that the game of NBA 2K also has our back and we could coexist and help each other out.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's tough. I always said 2K is a game that it tries to satisfy a lot of different modes. 2K has probably more modes than any game out there that's considered to be an esport. So it is tough if you watch particular modes and then you watch what we play. A lot of people see the retail version and they'll play the retail version and then they'll watch the pros on on Twitch and YouTube and things of that nature, and probably feel like they may be better than the pros until they actually run up against the pro. It's a little different, but I think over time, I know everybody is hoping that eventually we have the 2K League mode in the game, so everybody will have an opportunity to play it, because our mode is pretty much preset builds. Everybody's in 99, I think in 95 overall, no 99s, no double stamina bar, no Gatorades, no anything. And it's a little bit more competitive. It's just about, two people can load up on the same build, and it's just a matter of who's the best on that build at that particular night. So I think in time they're gonna, cater to our league build, and it's something that can become playable to everybody, so they can really see what it's like to play at the pro level.
Okay, and I have a follow-up
Alexander-
question to
Oh,
the.
no,
oh,
go
can I-
ahead. Stay with it. No,
Um,
stay with it, Marshall.
Okay. 2K is a game that it's pretty copy paste in terms of like the outward, image, but is there a lot of change like in between the generations, and do you have to like relearn some stuff or kind of figure out what's different?
Yeah, there is a lot of changes. So like you said, sometimes it's copy and paste in the sense of it's basketball. So, the rules of basketball are not going to change. But for instance, I have my traditional season that I just got back from. So I was in Brooklyn for 6 months and we played our season. And then I come home for 6 months and I have my traditional off season. Well, in my off season, technically I could just not touch the game and just show back into Brooklyn and play season 6. But that doesn't help me and doesn't help my team moving forward, because 2K23, which is coming out in a couple days, yes, it's a basketball game, but there's still things you got to learn. You got to learn new animations, new jump shots. You got to learn little like glitchy things, like maybe like something like an inbound steal, or how to get plucks if you're playing like a small forward lockdown. One of the biggest cases that change every year is your centers. So for instance, sometimes in the paint, scoring in the paint, there used to be 2Ks where you could feel like you're Shaquille O'Neal in the paint. You could dunk everything and no problems. And sometimes there's 2Ks where you can't make anything in the paint. If there's a fly in there and he tickles you, like you're going to miss. And that just kind of happens. And that's, you have to learn that every 2K. So one of the issues that we kind of had this year is I have on my team, I play power forward, but my center, his name's Shots. He's one of the best centers in the world. He's always been very good at being an offensive center. And this year they didn't let a center put the ball down on the ground, meaning like if that center went to even dribble that ball, he would lose it. He would lose it and the other team would take it. Now, sometimes if you go back to like season 3 and season 4, when we played, that 2K was different where my center could put the ball down. He could do Euro steps, 360s, whatever you wanted to do. And so that changes and we have to learn that. So if you don't, and you go into season 6 and you didn't prepare yourself in my off season, then you're going to go in and you're going to put your team at a disadvantage, and you're also going to put yourself at a disadvantage. So yeah, to answer your question, there's a lot of things you have to learn every single 2K. And you just want to put yourself in the best position to make money when you go into the season. So yeah.
Go ahead, Alexander, jump back in.
2 quick questions. My first question is, what separates like a good or a great from an elite 2K player? Like you have someone like Ticino, who's like obviously a YouTuber, but like everyone looks at him like he's like Jesus Christ reincarnate. But like obviously if he played in your league, yeah, he definitely wouldn't have that same success. And my second question is, you guys play any other leagues like the conventional My Career or My Team or something of that nature?
So the Ticino comment's funny because him and I actually play together. We wager together in like 3v3 parks and stuff like that, 3v3 stage, me, him, and our buddy Chris DT. But yeah, we've wagered together, and yeah, great casual player, great park player. And we've seen him actually try to play against professionals before, and it doesn't look good. And that's not really on him. Like he's not grinding as hard as we are, stuff like that. He's there to make content. And that's something that we also need in the 2K community. One of the things that I'm very fortunate to do, I think I do pretty well with talking to people and talking to chat. So I stream a lot in my off season because I know that not only is there a business and a professional side to this, and you know, I'm like I said, I'm trying, don't get in my way because I'm trying to win money here when I'm with NetsGC or I'm in Brooklyn during season. But in my off season, I totally get the content side of it. So all that stuff you watch from Ticino or even Famous or Steez the God or whoever you might be watching who produces a lot of 2K content, that kind of stuff you watch, they may look amazing, but you got to also understand the level of competition that they probably play in the casual modes. Like Kurt kind of said earlier, my GM, a lot of these people who think they're good, they are good players. I'm not taking anything away from them, but once they actually step up into the gauntlet and play some of the professionals, it doesn't look good. And trust me, we had Ticino in Indianapolis and he came and played this year and he got bounced really quick. Great player, love him to death. He's one of my guys, but that's just what you got. Like, it's kind of like what Kurt said earlier, where when you watch us and let's say we miss a shot while we're playing, you think like, oh, these guys are terrible. Like I could be a professional. And then you actually come and you play and you're like, wow, this is actually way more challenging. But yeah, like I said, both sides are very important. You need them both, the content side and the professional side. And then you got to learn how to balance both.
Yeah, I'll say that the biggest thing about the pros and the casuals, that the pros, they put in an unhealthy amount of time playing the game, and they know the ins and outs of every situation with their player in every position that's on the court. Obviously, in the pro league, that's where kind of you may not always think about the traditional side of things, but let's say like when Steez is playing with his pro-am teammates in the offseason, it may be times where they just load up and play. Because I mean, you basically probably got 5 pros on one team going against 5 pros on another team just in the offseason. And so they'll just load up and play. But during our season, we watch film, they watch film independently. They studying every move that you like to do, what side of the court you like to do it from, where you like to take your shots. Like, so everybody's game planning for everybody. And then on top of that, you throw a game that's worth $50K. And now it's a matter of who's ready on that particular night to play. And I think that's ultimately what separates the professionals from the casuals. I mean, when knowing the ins and outs of the game, and then what heightens the situations of the game. And for us, it's always going to come down to not only wanting to win, but wanting to take home that prize pool money. It separates the pros from the Joes real quick.
Nick, go ahead.
This is a question for both of you. Obviously, one of you being a player and one of you being a GM, is there anything that either of you guys might want to do like after the fact? Like, obviously, as a player, do you want to step up to a GM role? And as a GM, do you want to see yourself go further in a business role, or are both of you kind of happy right now with what you're doing?
Yeah, so my GM, we're thinking about putting him in a senior home after this is all done, because you know he's kind of getting up there. We call him a timeless torch. But no, go ahead, Kurt. Tell him what you want to do after. I'll go next.
For me, I have to be honest. I mean, I'm still having fun with it. This will be my 5th year coming up. You know, I have the opportunity to do something that only 23 other people besides myself do in the world. So, and I get to represent not only NetsGC, but the same organization that has the properties of the Long Island Nets, the New York Liberty, the Brooklyn Nets, the Barclays Center. I'm affiliated with all that. And it's a lot of perks that come with it. It's a lot of stress that comes with it as well. But just to give you an idea, I'm from Dayton, Ohio. I'm actually in Dayton, Ohio right now as we speak. I go back to Brooklyn full time when our season starts. But in my off season, I come back home to Dayton, Ohio, where my kids and my family and everybody is at, and I get a chance to spend time with them, still work, remote and everything like that, and then I'll fly back to Brooklyn once a month to do like different speaking engagements, different events, appearances at different tournaments and things of that nature. So it's what I call dream work at the end of the day. It's work, but it's worth it.
And And yeah, that was a joke. I love Kurt. That's my guy. I want him to be my GM for as long as he can. Realistically, if they ever came out with like a Star Wars trilogy again, like another one, he could probably do like the new voiceover for Darth Vader or something. But for me, like I'm still playing the game and I'm enjoying it every single day. I love competing. I love waking up. And that's the reason why I got out of financial advising. I probably should have touched on that, but I woke up every day, put on a suit at 22 years old, drove to Beverly Hills, and I was sitting in conference meetings with 35, 40-year-old gentlemen, which, you know, good people, and they love finance to death, but it was just something that I was good at, but I wasn't passionate about it. And I still wanted to compete every single day. Being a football player my whole life, like I love competing. And so once 2K League got announced, that's why I went for that. So I've kind of told Kurt and the people I love that support me that, like, you know, I'll be done with it when I'm done having fun with it, basically. And I still have fun every single day. And I love competing. I love trash talking. Aaron knows back from the Philly days, like I'm a big trash talker. It's a little tougher nowadays because you have to play remotely. And sometimes you get to go and play an indie in front of everybody, but being on stage and having the person across from you play is fun. And that's where it gets fun trash talking. But for plans afterwards, I've kind of dabbled in some other things. Obviously I'm a partnered streamer on Twitch, so I'm always going to have that avenue. If I want to just become a streamer for the rest of my life. Also I've commentated a little bit for the 2K League whenever I'm not playing. So I've also had some fun with that. I think it's cool giving my professional just IQ with some things while the stream's going on and you get questions asked by the announcers or the play-by-plays. And so I've also had fun with that. But also one of the great things, guys, for those of you guys that are your eyes are glaring over, and I get it because this has been going on for a while and you're ready to get off. But the cool thing about what we do is, like, obviously we're playing video games, but like the people that you network with in esports is crazy because so many businesses and companies and CEOs and people that you would not think like care about esports, they care about esports. And when you meet them, you know, that it's a big first impression. And I think that over the two organizations that I've played for, hopefully I've left the right impression from what Steez is or what Alex Bernstein brings to the table, to where I'll always have an avenue, whether I want to stay in the NBA and work in some department there or go to the NFL, whatever it might be. But like, that's the biggest thing. So my biggest advice for you guys, even if you're not going to do anything with esports, wherever you go, just keep networking, because that's one of the biggest things. It's never about what you know, it's about who you know. I became a financial advisor at 22 years old, working for a Fortune 500 company, and I had a sociology degree out of South Dakota. Like I'm probably shouldn't be here right now, like talking to you guys, to be real, but like just networking and knowing how to talk to people is going to be your guys' biggest thing.
One of the things, and you guys can probably both talk about this, but you know, the window for being a professional athlete in the NBA is significant, barring a major injury. But it feels like in esports, and Steez, you've already passed it, being like 5-6 years in the league, but it almost feels like the NFL running back, where it's like you have a very small window to capitalize on that. And you know, as you're building the team, Ivan, how do you take that into consideration as you're looking to long-term versus maybe just like a short-term goal of grabbing somebody who's, you know, a veteran and maybe doesn't have as long a window? And can you really know without them becoming a part of your team?
Yeah, I think that window you're talking about, I think they say is anywhere from 18 to 24 supposedly max, as far as your, you know, hand-eye coordination, reaction time, and everything like that. But obviously it's some people who have, you know, exceeded that. I think for me, it's important to get to know the player away from the game, because a lot of players, what I've learned over time is that depending on their background and where they come from, some people are just talented and they're just doing it to do it. And then there's some people who are working hard, they're talented, but they want to really get something out of this. I always say it's two types of 2K players, the one before the check and the one after the check. Because I've seen players be hungry and do everything that it takes to make the league, and then once they get in the league, these are 18 and 19-year-old kids who've never had a job, and now all of a sudden you're getting 30 to 40,000 for 6 months, on top of a chance to earn more through tournaments and playoffs and things of that nature. So I think for me, I try to take pride in getting to know the players away from the game, so I know what their mindset is, you know, why they're playing 2K, why they want to be in the professional league, and ultimately, you know, what do they want to do with their life, you know, at that current time. I think just to kind of piggyback off of what Steez was saying is that I know it's probably people sitting in here who probably may not play video games, may not think anything about esports, but I'll tell you this: 5 years ago, there were marketing majors that got jobs with BSC Global to work for the Brooklyn Nets, to work for the Long Island Nets, and then now all of a sudden here they are working for esports as well, because that's just the way the world is turning. So it's just like one of those things, like you never know what you set out to do, it turns into something else. And even for myself, I never thought 5 years ago I'd be doing this, that what I'm doing today. So you just have to be alert and see what's going on and be ready to fulfill whatever it is that's asked of you. I mean, so I kind of look at all of that within a player, and that's how I decide who, I bring into NetsGC at the end of the day.
Steez, what about you? I mean, do you worry about that longevity? Do you think about it, or you're just like, I'm just going to keep going until someone taps my shoulder and says
I'm done.
Can't do it anymore,
Yeah,
but time to go.
The running joke is I'm just going to keep doing it until my thumbs fall off, basically.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. I mean, I know that. Oh, and just for you guys, this isn't tooting my own horn, but I'm 28 years old, and statistically, I had my best season so far as a player. And that's even through all my 76er GC games and all that. But so, yeah, it's like maybe reaction time, all that maybe slowly decreases. But when you have that will and that want, and like you show up and you put the work in, like you're going to be good at this game. So when I told Philly I wasn't coming back this year, the off season prior to me becoming an SGC player was nothing but grind. Like I played nonstop. I mean, Aaron, you might have known at the time. I don't know. I had a girlfriend for 6-7 years, something like that. That went out the window, because like that's how much time. I'm not saying you got no life like that, guys, for anything you do. It was just something I had to do because I had a lot of people that are counting on me to and that support me, and it was just something I had to do. And I put a lot of pride in my content and how much better of a player I wanted to be going into season 5, and it paid off. It really did. I started getting the respect that I deserved this year because of my play. And so to answer your question, yeah, man, until the thumbs fall off, because I'm still loving it, especially after having such a good season, and seeing the trajectory that we're going with NetsGC just gets me more excited to go into season 6. It gets me, it just gets me excited. And to play under Kurt and the guys that I have right now around me, we are really going to be something special. So when you have something like that, man, it doesn't make you want to put the sticks down. And plus, like, when you are able to provide for your family, whether that's paying bills, putting food on the table, buying gifts, whatever it might be, like, man, it's fun. And it's hard not to like wake up and want to do this when there's 2.5 million on the line every year.
I'm gonna get you guys out of here shortly, and I know you're kind of beyond what I asked, and I appreciate it. But Steez, I do have a question for you, and then I'll probably ping both of you guys on a wrap up. But I mean, with 76ers GC, you knew what you had. You knew what Coach Terrell was like. You knew what the foundation of the program was. You knew what the Sixers were like. Not only the GC element, but everything that goes into HBSC and their commitment. How much of a risk was it for you to say, I'm betting on myself, I'm going to go try and take another chance elsewhere? Because up until now, I didn't even know the story. I just knew you weren't there.
Yeah.
And so, what went behind that decision, and how worried were you that you might be taking too much of a risk?
So what kind of went behind that position? I helped build that brand for about 3 or 4 years, and it was something great.
Absolutely.
It was something very respectable, and it was a very prestigious, that logo meant something when it walked into the building. And I loved that about that team. And I started seeing some of the other players that we brought into the organization were tarnishing that a little bit, even though they were still good players skill wise. It was more of the character, and the discipline wasn't there anymore. And I felt that kind of going out the window. And when the season was coming to an end, Mr. Terrell asked me, could you see yourself playing here again? And I said, you know what? I've done a lot for this organization, and I've always put the other teams and the organizations first. And I said, this is the time where I'm going to put myself first, and I'm going to take a chance on me, and I'm going to gamble on me that I'm going to be okay. And yeah, of course I'm shitting myself at the end of the year because I'm like, if this offseason doesn't go well, who knows if I get picked back up. And so I remember I was asking my family, like certain scenarios, like, should I do this? Should I do that? And they always said, like, do everything you can and don't leave no stone unturned. And so when draft day came up, I was thinking to myself, like, it's going to suck if I don't get drafted, right? It's going to suck if I wake up and I don't get to play video games professionally anymore. Of course, like I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried about that, but I knew that no matter what, I'm going to be okay. And I knew I did everything in my power to get to where I am now. And so that's why I was so happy that I had such a good season. Obviously we hope that things would have worked out a little bit better as a team, and our success there, but definitely happy for like where I'm at, because I feel like I really earned it. But yeah, man, you trip every day. Like there's kids right now that aren't on a team technically, and they're about to go into this off season. And if they don't, work their tail off, like they're not going to be on a team next year. And then it's back to figuring out what you're going to do with your life. Luckily, I've been in this league for 5 to 6 years to where I know I could still play, but also there's other avenues that I've already paved. And so I'm pretty proud of myself for that. So either way, I'm excited, but like I said, I'm here till the thumbs fall off. I still got some more years in me. And like I said, I'm excited to bring NetsGC a championship soon.
Awesome. Ivan, like you said, you're scouting, you're looking at the league all the time. You're looking at film for upcoming matchups. You clearly had gone against Steez a number of times with GC, with the NetsGC. And when you see that he's re-entering, like, are you like trying to figure out where he's going to go and when you can snag him? And, how does that kind of scouting process work in parallel to like what people know works with, the NFL or the NBA, or maybe somebody that's about to do a fantasy draft and they're like, scouting how they're going to draft?
Yeah, I think the benefit of being me in this community is I have pretty solid relationships with a lot of different players, whether it's past pros, present, or upcoming. And I think the unique part about it is when Steez played for 76ers GC, me and my content manager at the time, we took a train out to Philly, and I also recorded a podcast episode with Coach Jeff Terrell. But during that time, me and Steez had some great conversations and really got to know each other on a more personal level. And that was something I never forgot. And then when it came down to the interview process, this past off season, I really got a chance to get to know him, and he let me know that if he was available, that this is somewhere that he wanted to come, and that he only interviewed with teams that he wanted to be there. So I think the benefit for me was I was put in an unfortunate situation coming into this past draft. And so all my picks were in the later part of the draft. I have picks 40, I want to say 41, 46, and 49. So I was at the bottom end of the draft, and I got Steez. Luckily, I nailed 2 out of the 3 picks at the end of the draft, and they were 2 of the top players in the league, especially on the defensive side of things. Kind of puts you in a mind where we had a top 5 defense. We just didn't do a great job scoring the ball, but Steez was a big part of that, and helping our defense become what it was. And so I think it just all fit. I think a lot of people doubted Steez, which worked into I benefited from it. But I think it was just one of those things where I wasn't really worried about him, the player. I knew the person, and I knew how he would come in and lead and help our franchise become better, not only on the court, but off the court. And he definitely did that. And I know that also his big thing was content. And, I'm a big content creator. So I know as a player, that's what he wanted to do. And in our organization, we're big on content, which is he didn't get a chance to do in Philly. And mind you, it worked out for him because he gets a chance. He has an offseason contract with us as well to create content, and not many players get monetary opportunities like that within their organization. So I'm just glad that it turned out great for him. It turned out great for us, and I look forward to having him as long as I'm here.
Awesome. I don't think I have anything else directly for the two of you. Does anybody have any questions before I let both of them go?
They're all probably playing
right.
video games right now, Aaron.
I mean, listen, I don't blame them.
I get it. Trust me.
I'm
I've
just
seen the
kidding.
eyes glossing over. They're good to go.
Stop playing video games. No, I really appreciate you guys coming in. You know, being able to talk to someone or two people actually who are professionals in the industry I think is a huge asset. Obviously, you know, Steez, you and I go back, and I knew what I was getting with you. And that's one of the reasons why I reached out. Ivan, I really appreciate your time as well. And adding some extra insight. I could probably talk to you guys for easily forever and keep going, but I'm also going to let you guys go and let everyone take a break. But seriously, I really appreciate it. I'm sure that I'll have to watch NetsGC and trail off Sixers GC a little bit, you know.
Yeah. And Alex needs to get off the "you famous enough" train, and you got to come over to NetsGC. We produce content over here. If you guys need to, you guys can follow me on anything, Steez, all that stuff. You can find me. I'll be around.
Yeah, that's right. That's
a
thing that I was gonna leave everybody with is
Yeah.
follow Nets Gaming Crew on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook if you got it. Then we're on TikTok as well and LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn at Ivan D. Curtis. Everything else is OG KING CURT on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm a connector. So if you're looking to not only get into esports, but just the sports and entertainment industry, period, just shoot me a DM. And when we have positions open, or interns or anything like that, I'm definitely a name you might want to know.
Network, guys.
Cool.
Just network. That's the biggest thing. Appreciate you, Aaron.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Steve, I'm sure we'll be in touch at some point in the future. Ivan, I'm sure you and I will too now. So I really appreciate it, guys. Have a great night.
All right, you too.
All right,
guys.
you too.
Later.
See ya.